you're an artist,
Yeah.
and I'm an artist too. And
Uh-huh.
every time somebody that you mentioned that on your interviews, I feel that they don't ask you too much about that side of you. So I wanted to start asking you about that, and
Okay.
specifically about two things. One is that you mentioned in class that you wrote. I want to ask you first, before I forget, I want to talk to you about your paintings. But before the paintings, I want to ask you about. You said in class, in the remote viewing class, that you wrote 17 screenplays. And I wrote here, that's not casual writing, that's a serious creative effort. That surprised me, and it made me very curious about your artistic side. And so the first question will be, when when did you start writing screenplays? Is that something you
I
started when
started
you were
writing screenplays. Let's see. Um, well, I was writing, all my books are nonfiction. But what
nonfiction?
most people don't know is I have six manuscripts that are all fiction.
Right.
And I haven't come up with a good name for the publication of those because you don't want your fiction and your nonfiction mixed together.
Right.
So most people who write nonfiction, if they do publish in fiction, it's usually with a different name. And
Oh.
I haven't figured out what to do with that. And most of the books I wrote are somewhat controversial. Um, I wrote a book called Necessary Evil, and
Necessary
it's
evil.
600 pages, and
I like.
it's about the Vietnam War and the fact that you only had to be there 2 days, and you knew that that wasn't a place we needed to be. That it
I
was a
like.
civil war, and we had no business involved in the Civil War. But
Mm.
it what made me write the book, the fictional book, is I happened to be recovering from one of my sojourns as an intelligence officer overseas. So I was walking with a cane at the time, and I was sitting in a bar in an airport. I think it was either in Hawaii or Los Angeles. I can't remember which now, but there's a whole bunch of us sitting at the bar, and they came on with a news report on My Lai, the tragedy at My Lai, and we're talking about the lieutenant who was just indiscriminately shooting people. And there was a
Mhm.
guy on the other end of the bar who said, really loud, he yelled out, if that was me, I never would have done something like that. And it offended me. I got down off my bar stool and I walked down to the end and I tapped him on the shoulder. And when he looked at me, I said, you don't have a clue what you do or not do. I said, you can't judge a soldier in the heat of battle because you have no idea what the cause is. And you should never judge that way. It has to be done formally in a court of law or something where there's witnesses and the reasons come out. Then I walked back to I thought he was going to come off the bar stool and hit me, but he saw my cane and changed his mind, I guess. So I went back to my bar stool and he left. So, but I wrote the book in order to show people how good, honest young kids want to serve their country. They go in the military, they learn everything they're supposed to learn. They go overseas, they get pushed into a war they shouldn't even be in, and it changes you dramatically. And
Mhm.
you have no idea what the experience has done to that person or why they do
Right.
things afterwards. And the bad thing is the military, they train you to do a lot of things in battle, but they don't untrain you when you're leaving the military.
Right.
So
Right.
you have to adjust on your own, and it's unfair
Right.
because a lot of young people are not, they didn't even reach maturity till age 23, 25, somewhere in there.
Right. We're
And
older.
and they've been twisted all up with the war and combat.
Right.
And it's unfair to judge them. And it pigeonholes them and causes more problems later. So it's kind of an aggravation. So the way I wrote the book is you, as a reader, identify, by the time you're halfway through the book, you're identifying with the protagonist, the young man.
Mhm.
And at some point past the halfway point, he's indiscriminately just killing people. And you're in an emotional state by then where you're going, get some, and
Right.
you suddenly realize you're rooting for a cold-blooded killer.
Right.
And
Right.
and that's usually when the editors throw my manuscript out the window. And
Oh. Wow.
so I have like 60 denials on publication for it.
Hmm.
And but every denial I got came with a single space type letter apologizing for never having been involved in the Vietnam War. And it's like, no, I didn't write it for that reason. I wrote it so people would understand
Right.
that war changes people. And
Oh, yeah.
but I never got it published.
Hmm.
Um, but the screenplays, everybody reads the books and then they say, oh, that would be a good movie. So I started writing screenplays.
Okay.
But screenplays are hard to write.
They're hard to
There's
write. Yeah.
there's no real school for them.
Right.
So I went to a wedding in Connecticut and
Mm-hmm.
sat at they have everybody sitting at specific tables, and so I was sitting at this table with four different strangers, and one of them was a very well known screenplay writer, and
Oh.
I said, "Oh, I always wanted to do that." So he
Mm-hmm.
says, "Well, write one and send it to me." So I did, and it came back marked up all in red. So I redid it, sent it, and it came back with a little less red. And over 2 years, that one screenplay got passed back and forth,
Hmm.
rewritten many, many times, and I finally got it back with a big OK on it and an exclamation point. And that's when I took off writing screenplays. So
Hmm.
um, I sold one.
Okay.
That was show number 16 on Dead Zone. You
Okay.
know, and that's my claim to fame. But
Okay.
the rest haven't been sold to anybody, but there are people reading them right now. So, you never know. Uh,
And do you have are they all your screenplays like the same theme, or are they different themes? Do they have
oh,
series
they're all
of
different themes.
other themes?
I have a couple Stephen King type screenplays, with the horror and the
Hmm.
craziness. And I think there's even a beheading in one of them. But
Hmm.
uh, then I have a number that are geared towards uh, conflict, but across the ages, like the Crusades and a couple
Hmm.
other areas in time back around the 1500s.
Hmm.
And then I have a couple on Asia, things going on in Asia, and sort of with a criminal type uh, theme to them. And
Hmm.
I actually have a couple love stories. I have one called Angeline. It's about a man who goes away to the Crusades, and while he's at the Crusades, he loses his girl because
Hmm.
everybody thinks he's dead. So when he
Hmm.
comes back, of course, he's lost everything.
Hmm.
And he's just trying to make his way in life. When he finds out that she's still alive and they bump into each other
Right.
and they fall in love again. And,
Oh.
but it's at an advanced age, like an elderly age.
Hmm.
And the husband, who is elderly as well to her, is the
Hmm.
guy that stole all his property while he was gone.
Hmm.
So they have a son. He's in his mid 20s, and the father encourages the son to pick a fight to get rid of this guy. And that's all I'm going to say about it because it
Okay.
it gets really interesting later.
Hmm.
Uh, anyway,